This book is a perfect exemplification of modern occult grimoires because it has all of the genius and also all of the folly imaginable between two great, wonderful covers. If the content within those covers was something else, it would have been a must-have, but it isn't, and I will explain why it goes in my reject shelf, so stay tuned. Welcome to biblioCultist, where I review books that I find interesting in the topics of religion, philosophy, history, and fiction. Please remember, like I always have to say, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. Doing these things helps out the channel. I appreciate it. Click the bell to get notifications so you don't lose episodes. And also, I'm going to put in the bottom my X account and on the side my Ko-Fi if you want to do a tip or a recurrent subscription. It really helps me out because I can continue this content and further add to it as time goes by. So again, I really appreciate your support. In this episode, I'm going over the Altar of Qayin, the Book of Resurrection by Mark Allen Smith. This edition is by Primal Craft Occult Publications 2020, and I do have to speak about the wonderful quality of my edition because the printing, the presentation, everything about it is actually very good. The quality of the paper, it's very nice. I have a numbered and signed edition. You will see it here on the screen when I get to that point in the book. And everything about that aspect of the book, the design, the labor that went into it, it's all very good. So I want to put that out to start. Another awesome thing about this book are the drawings, the paintings, the sigils. All of them are actually spectacular. So if you just look at the book from an artistic point of view, it is an awesome book. And it's actually one of the elements that attracted me to it. Rightfully so. It is well put together. The sigils are very creative. And I can imagine hundreds of black metal bands could derive from this book thousands of ideas. It has all those aspects that are pretty cool. And the black and white drawings are wonderful. The point is, everything about the book, artistically speaking, is actually pretty cool. And to be fair, there are also some really good verses in there, beautifully crafted. The imagery presented in them are wonderful and all its gothic splendor. And I'll give a short example, but there are many more. Quote, "From the pit and lake of fire, and scripture storm from Babylonian man, I summon forth the body and will of Qayin, the spirit and power of the wandering god, witch master of the devil's forge, within which book of souls, trident of the witch gods, and all weapons are placed into my mortal hands. I stand as fifth pillar, the fetish lord adorned with bones. The devil's phallus am I, imbued with Sephiron's venom. Within Belial's flesh, ignited with Lucifer's fire, in the will of Hecate, I part the gates of hell, unleashing the shadow of Qayin, that shall embrace my very bones. His shadow is now my body. My flesh becomes the dark robe of Qayin. My blood shall run black, ignited by his flames." And it goes on. It is actually a very nicely crafted poem, and to me it would make a perfect metal song, to be honest with you, because it has all those classic elements. So as far as it goes, the construction of a lot of this poetry and, again, the aesthetic dynamics of the writing is really good. So when I started reading the book, I was at least enjoying that component because he has the main text and then he has these poems kind of sprinkled throughout the book that make it very appealing. As a matter of fact, I would have probably enjoyed it more if that's the entire book. If he would have just only made it into a book of poetry and all the sigils and everything else, it would have been actually a very good book. But it is more than that, and in a way, that's what puts it in the reject shelf. I also got to say there are some spells that are indeed creative and interesting from a psychological point of view. Like the creation of the altar skull, like the whole process of it, the way you paint the skull, the whole thing is actually very cool. So again, I've read a lot of grimoires in my life, especially when I was younger, and there's always some form of creativity on this, right? It seems almost like a free flow conception of how to make something be scary or interesting, right? I tell you to buy a skull and then paint it with sigils and put ink on the forehead and stick horns of a goat or something like this. You know, you can literally just imagine or invent whatever you want. And it's fairly easy to make it into something pretty cool, pretty edgy. Paint it red so it emulates blood, that kind of thing. So it's usually nothing new under the sun when it comes to these kinds of aesthetics, but he did a pretty good job in taking something that is quite common and making it a little bit different. And I think throughout the book you find some instances of this. Also, some of the narrative elements read like fun horror fiction, and that can be also entertaining when it comes to how you're reading the book. But it's all to a certain degree, because there are some limitations on how far you can go in narrative when you actually are selling a grimoire that is meant to be taken seriously so that you can apparently grow spiritually in the path of Qayin. So how does that work when the book is primarily an artistic rendition of a fantasy? Let me give you an example of what I mean by the narrative structure of the work. Quote, "A cold touch of the priesthood follows the stench of rotting, decayed flesh as ancient seals, which have held the priesthood at bay for millennia, are finally broken. Priests imprisoned beneath realms of flame, or bound by angelic seals, are now released. Other priests of this ancient cult, who have moved down the passage of time from body to body, possessing incarnate forms of unsuspecting magicians, will gravitate towards you to serve in the name of the first Lord of Death." So here he's talking about summoning these ancient magicians, and necromancy, that kind of thing. But this is as far as I can praise this book, because the rest is such esoteric hocus pocus, to use a kind of funny, ironic term, that it is unbearable, at least to me. And even a lot of the rituals advocated here are highly questionable, not only from a practical point of view, but even from a legal point of view. I cannot see people actually attempting to do any of these things and come out the other end in a good position, socially and legally, and even worse, psychologically. So I have to assume, for the sake of the author and the sake of the book itself, that it is meant as just pure fiction. And if that is the case, then it is also a problem, because it's not that great of a fiction. It has so many cliches in there, so many vaguely satanic elements there, that it removes any credibility from the work, because if it is meant to be taken seriously, then it is absurd, and if it's meant to be taken as fiction, it's not that good. You see the problem? So it's in that weird place in modern books. How many blood of goats can you manage? How many cemeteries can you attend? How much of the stench of dead bodies and crystals, black robes, daggers, and all the cool classics of black magic can you pack into a book until it becomes silly? And I think if you just lather something with Gothica, is that enough to make it a good grimoire? Is that all I have to do? Dance on top of graves with a violin? Will I drench myself in the blood of innocents? How dramatic can you be when it just becomes an act of stupidity? And there's no philosophy either. When I read any book, I try to find some philosophical or theological basis for it. Some kind of justification, something that elevates your thought process to something higher than just aesthetics. I didn't find anything that was actually making an argument for this kind of process. And I think that's the trouble with all modern works. They are relativistic, solipsistic, and because of this, they believe that you can throw anything on a piece of paper and it will hold, because it is their interpretation. And their interpretation is as good as my interpretation. Everything works, everything is valid, everything can be tried. There's no need to justify it, as long as it looks cool. And I understand, for some people, that's all that matters. It reminds me when I was a kid, there used to be a lot of punk and hardcore and heavy metal bands that would just give you an awesome presentation. A lot of times were corporations doing this. And you would look at the poster and you would look at the cover of the album and you would say, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. This is awesome. And then you would listen to that crap and it sucked because it had no heart, no soul, no content, no messaging. But you could appreciate the artistic value of the presentation at least, but that's as far as you can go with them. A lot of modern grimoires are doing the same thing. They're giving you wonderfully expensive books with goat skin bindings and pentagrams, and everything is spectacular, but there's nothing in it. It's empty of actual content. And what's funny is that even old grimoires suffer from this, but never to this level. Because to be very honest, when I was a kid, I thought grimoires were going to be very sophisticated works, and when I started reading them, I realized they were not that sophisticated. I mean, they can be interesting, but they're not thought out works. It's a mix of superstition and wishful thinking. And I'm using the word wishful very precisely. But now it's all externalities and aesthetics. So again, if you like having beautiful books, they have awesome art and a few good verses in there and nice imagery, then this book will work. But if you're looking for something that would actually delve into philosophy or what I expected, something that would give me at least some comment on the Qayin lineage of modern people that have taken Qayin as their idol, and I was looking forward to reading something that would really make me delve into that mentality and try to understand what kind of religion they're trying to build. But apparently, as far as I can tell from this book, it's not much there except cool art. But if you know of a book that has more content on Qayin and all the attempts to build something around this character, then put it in the comments. And hopefully I didn't offend the author or anyone involved in this. Like I said, my perspective and my focus is usually very particular. So if the book doesn't contain these things and it's a disappointment, it goes into my reject shelf. And you can see other books on my reject playlist, and you'll see some of them are mainstream books. I just don't like them, and I'll put them there. And you can disagree with me. I could be completely wrong from your perspective, and that's fine too. You can put it in the comments. We can discuss it. But nonetheless, I appreciate you watching the channel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. Thank you for being with me. See you next time.